Welcome to the Path Podcast. It's April 5th. I'm here with Auk, and today we have a couple of really special guests that I'm super excited about. We have Nicole and Val. Take it away. I'm not going to do a super formal introduction.
Maybe just introduce yourselves a little bit of your background for those of us who weren't listening to you 6 years ago.
I know. Auk and I have been listening to the show where we were talking to you guys, so it's hard for me to not think that the audience really knows you already. But
yeah. I'm Nicole Formosa. I was here 6 years ago, it sounds like, and I remember almost nothing from that. So maybe I'll do better this time.
But at that time, that was a couple of jobs ago for you.
Yeah. So most of my background is in cycling media, and I think when I was here before, I was with Bike Magazine. And a lot has happened since then. A lot.
What's the elevator pitch? What's the 10 second or whatever, however many seconds you want to take on it?
Well, Bike Magazine sort of went into what I was calling publishing purgatory at the end of October 2020. And it's actually since been purchased by a new publisher, Arena Group. They own Sports Illustrated and some other titles, and so I hear they're trying to fire it back up. But anyway, after that happened, me and this bike staff at that time, we went to what became Outside Publishing, Outside Inc., to start a new magazine. So we started that in early 2021. That was called Beta, RIP. And
Seriously. Yeah.
RIP, that shut down in May of 2022. So I like to compare it to Freaks and Geeks.
Oh.
A short life, but I think it had a lot of impact in its short life. So
agree.
That, and then I stared at a wall for like 6 months, and after just like the turmoil of publishing over the last few years, and I'm now with Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship, and I started marketing and communications for them in November. So I'm with that organization, which has been an amazing, refreshing change. So that's it. That was long for an elevator.
Not at all.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's perfect.
everywhere you've been, we've all loved those places. Brain and Bike and Beta. Mm-hmm. Beta was awesome.
Beta was awesome.
It
was.
The print version of it was to die for.
Yeah, and I think, that's one thing. The ending was kind of hard, not totally unexpected, but, the way it all went down. But that's one thing to kind of take away is I kind of feel like creatively we kind of left it all on the table, like we did everything we wanted to do. And I feel like it was, I was really proud of it and happy of like how it came out and the staff that worked on it. And so it was, it's mostly positive takeaways.
It makes sense that you'd be proud of it. It's super highly regarded, and we all loved it. And but also Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship, correct me if I'm wrong, were they the leaders in having a master trail plan, or were one of the first stewardships to do that?
They've kind of always been a leader, I would say, in trail stewardship, pretty visionary and thinking a lot bigger than just mountain biking. I think they Greg formed in 93, 94, and at that time, I'm a decade too early. He was just doing the race back then. I think the stewardship itself formed in 2003, but sort of had the presence of mind to not call it a mountain biking stewardship. And that sort of served it really well over the years because, now it's really focused on building trails for everyone and, wasn't pigeonholed early on into just mountain biking, which I think for the time was really visionary. But yeah, it's an amazing organization. I think a lot of people know it because of the Downieville Classic, which is celebrating 25 years this year. It's coming back after it's been away for 3 years, so that's super exciting. That's a big fundraiser for the stewardship. And so their events, Lost and Found Gravel is another really popular stewardship event, and it's just an exciting time to be with them. They've got, like I said, a really big vision for the connected communities, which is a pretty ambitious project.
The connected Downieville communities?
Well, it's actually sort of long term. The goal is to connect 15 mountain town communities in the area, which is sort of known as the La Sierra, northeastern Sierra Mountains. So that's the long-term goal, is to, and the Trails Master Plan hopefully will be sort of published this year, but it sort of lays out this huge project to connect these mountain towns through trails. And the idea is really to get people into the main streets of these sort of economically disadvantaged towns and just revitalize the area, like they've done for Downieville.
Awesome. Roughly how big of an area is that?
Oh, geez. It's big. It's
like hundreds of miles in radius, 300
yeah,
miles.
So I
maybe.
mean, the signature trail that hopefully will be approved and will be sort of a combination of existing roads and trails and new trails is like 575 miles, 4 counties, like all the way from Reno and Truckee into these smaller La Sierra towns. So it's really big. Like, vision's really big.
Awesome.
Awesome.
And sort of like, kind of likening it to, like the PCT or the JMT, these sort of signature routes. But then there's a bunch of other parts to connected communities too, like trailhead infrastructure. And so it's a big project. So it's an exciting time to be with them for sure, as this kind of all comes together.
And that's, I mean, it's kind of a flex even to have a position like yours for trail stewardship, I feel like.
I guess that's such a modern term, Tani. I'm very impressed. Flex. You're so hip.
I have daughters.
Daughters.
And a young staff. I love it.
I had written about them for years at Bike, and I covered a little bit at Beta, like the Dixie Fire, which was obviously catastrophic for that area. And I had done features on the stewardship over the years. We did profiles on Greg. So I kind of always knew of the stewardship, and I'd been up there and ridden in some of the trails, and like, I knew it was a really special place. And the job kind of came open right about the time I was like, I guess I should start working again. Might be time to do something.
Sabbatical is coming to an end.
Sabbatical wall staring time was coming to an end. I reached out, but they're really, it's really important to them to provide jobs in the local economy. So I was kind of like, I probably don't, I'm down in Southern California. I don't live up there. This probably isn't going to work out for that reason, but I'm like, I'm going to reach out because I really respect the organization, and I just had always followed the sort of their projects. I knew about connected communities, and so I was like, I want to just reach out, and it ended up working out. So it's been great. I guess it's been 5 months, and
that's cool. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
How often do you get to / have to go up there?
I actually am going at the end of this month for sort of like, since most of my time has been over the winter when there's not a ton, and especially up there. Oh my gosh.
This year.
Yeah, this year. Who knows when winter's ending? So I actually am going up for the first time at the end of this month. We're doing a big epic volunteer weekend, so I'll go up for that. And probably I'll go up for the big events, Lost and Found, and the Downieville Classic, and probably handful of times a year.
Lucky. It sounds awesome.
Yeah. It's kind of cool to be able to spend time up there and have that connection.
While we're talking about it, we probably have a small majority or something of listeners who have never been to that area. We should tell them a little about it, maybe.
Have you been?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can try to describe it. It's awesome.
Well, Downieville's such a... I mean, there's Downieville, and then there's they've sort of... that's really where they started and kind of the foundation of the organization and where they, played a huge role in revitalizing Downieville. But they've grown a lot outside of that. Like Mount Huff now is big. There's Grey Eagle. There's all kinds of different... The riding's really varied. But Downieville is freaking awesome. I mean, it really is. Yeah. It's a special place.
See, I'm one of the small population that's never been up there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people down here, because I mean, it's a bit of a haul. It's like 9 hours to drive up there, and it's not exactly on the way really to anywhere.
That's exactly
yeah. Like I think it kind of gets looked over a little bit. Not if you're in the Bay Area, like that's so many people go there, but down here, I think it's a little bit more removed, and it really is. I'm just kind of like one of those places that should be on everyone's list. And a lot of their trails are moto legal, and so e-bikes are fine. Motos are legal all through Downieville and Mount Huff, and so it's a bit different. I think we're used to down here having a lot more just kind of like user conflict, and there's so much more space up there. It's all national forest, and it's really different. I think there's a lot less conflict in terms of the various users, and e-bikes. You can ride e-bikes up there.
It is.
It's
a little bit different when you come across a dirt bike in the middle of a mountain bike trail, but it works. It definitely works.
Yeah.
In that environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think it would work around.
No. Yeah, I don't.
As much as fun as that sounds.
But yeah, so
how big is the organization staff-wise and other initiatives that they might be working on?
Yeah, so it kind of depends. There's a lot of seasonal trail crews, obviously, that are just sort of like getting started. And I think last year, employees like 65 at the height of the season.
Including the trail crews?
Yeah. Okay. So there's 4 pro trail crews, and there's a youth crew. So that's a really big part of what they do as well, is just kind of like, sort of shepherding the young kids around into this trail building program. And they go out for a week at a time, and they, they camp and they cook food together, and they sort of like have that whole experience, and they're paid. And it's, so there's 2 different youth crew programs in the summer, and then there's 4 of the pro trail crews, so it's pretty big.
And the pro trail crews have full-time employees who just work on trails.
Yeah.
Rad.
Yeah, various areas, kind of just depending on like it's going to be interesting this year because of the snow. So things are going to be like, what can be worked on and when, and a lot of moving parts. But yeah, it's a pretty big organization for a trail stewardship.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's great.
How's it all funded?
Kind of a combination of there's a lot of government grants, and that's like the volunteer portion. Matching is a big part of it. But it's interesting, COVID obviously turned everything on its head, but for the stewardship, events were such a huge part of what they did. And there's a bike shop, Yuba Expeditions is their bike shop. And so those were like really big pieces of the puzzle, and all went away during COVID.
Is Yuba back?
Yuba's back.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Yuba's doing well. And, they run shuttles on Huff and various other, you can like book a private shuttle, and that's a big part of the business there, and demos.
Really cool bike shop.
Yeah.
One you can hang out at.
Yeah. And actually they used to be in Downieville. They're only in Quincy now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when COVID happened, like they really had to pivot quickly because so much of the funding changed. There were no events. I think Lost and Found was gone for 2 years. Downieville was gone for 3. And so man, they really pivoted quickly to kind of sort of change the model to get more private funding. So that's a bigger part of the puzzle now than it has been in the past. And so, you still have the events. Thankfully, they're
coming back,
and the bike shop and the grants are a huge part of it. But grants can be kind of up and down, and so like I think the long-term goal is to have that more stable private funding.
And some of that's from the industry, from the bike industry.
Yeah, there's partner collective, and then there's private, just individual donors.
Or foundations. Hopefully you find some of these big foundations.
Family foundations, individual donors. Yeah.
Right.
So.
Is it affiliated with IMBA or any of the other? Do we know?
Not directly. It's not like an IMBA chapter or anything like that.
But there's some coordination, maybe, or comparing of notes, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. I haven't heard a lot about. I mean, I think there's a connection there.
I get the sense IMBA admires the kind of leadership and the vision, just from people at IMBA that I've talked to about it.
Yeah, I think Sierra Buttes has been, for a lot of smaller stewardships, it's like this is one way you can do it. You can try to go pretty big with what you're trying to accomplish, or I think it's also, people might want to go the opposite direction and kind of stay small and tight and not have to worry about grants, because that's so much work, and you've got to have staff to support that and to manage that. And I think it's it's something that other organizations can say, like, oh yeah, maybe I don't want to try to go that direction, or I do, but I think they've for sure been a leader in what you can turn it into.
And I think you can pick a couple of key points. Like, if the Orange County area even had one or two paid trail workers, even just to coordinate all the volunteers and get them to do the right thing, and if we did have a master trail plan, that'd be kind of cool. I mean, that might be just kind of some of the low hanging fruit. Maybe. Yeah, and it's so different like so much of it comes down to your ranger district and like your national forest, and like how much they want to work with the trail group, and that's such a big part of it, and that can kind of be a crapshoot. It can turn on a dime, probably.
District. Yeah.
So I feel like the San Diego Mountain Bike Association has done a lot and has made some really good, for what I've seen in this area, I feel like they've made some amazing progress, and like just that kind of trying to take it to the next sort of professional paid level.
Right.
It's not hard. I mean, it's not easy.
Hard.
I think it's really hard.
It's hard.
It's not easy. Yeah. So
just a quick digression. We didn't really introduce Val. She was on the show a couple shows ago.
Sorry, I just
because she's on. Well, also Val's on the show from time to time, so it's almost she needs less introduction. I think our listeners know her. But Val, awesome. Hi. Thanks for being here.
Wouldn't miss it. Nicole's one of my best friends.
Yeah.
We just did a huge ride on Sunday together, and we spent quite a bit of time together. Mostly on the bike, but socially too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. In my wall staring time, I mean, I think I spent a lot of that in the Santa Anas with you.
Staring
working
at
it all out.
Yeah.
Wall staring time?
After beta.
Like literally the wall on Main to 5. The mini walls.
After publishing. When I was on sabbatical. A lot of that time was pedaling and was in the Santa Anas, and
it was awesome.
You were talking about the ride before the show. It sounded awesome. I want to hear the story.
Awesome. It was like type, what do you think? 2, 5? Type 4?
I don't know.
No, it was solid type 2 fun.
It was actually like intimidating stats, but really not that bad. So we went up Maple Springs, which is like a 3,000 foot climb. And right? About 3,000, I think. And then we rode across Main Divide over to Bedford Road, down Bedford. And then stopped at a park in Corona. So we rode to Corona basically from my house, which was kind of cool. Up and over the scenic route. And then we stopped at a park, and then we rode over to Eagle Truck Trail and climbed up Eagle.
Oh gosh.
And
Eagle was lovely. I have to say.
Because you were conditioned for that traverse from the Four Corners to wherever. And that is so demoralizing.
Or Black Star to Motorway.
I totally relate to Nicole on this. That ride sounds like definitely a high number of type of ride.
But that's down Motorway. So we had like 3 miles of single track in a 30-mile ride.
31 miles.
I was like, this is how they did it in the 90s. I was really feeling like a 90s mountain biker.
Yes, the guidebook. Yeah. Go ride.
It was like all fire road.
On our spurs, we have not matching spurs. We have matching spurs.
Bobsies.
Spurs.
Yeah.
Bobsy
Nicole
bikes.
has kind of the perfect bike for that ride.
It's the perfect bike.
Yeah,
I
for a
can
lot of
believe it.
rides.
Yeah.
It really is, especially if you end up on fire road a lot, which we do.
But no, it actually was really one of those. It's just like a beautiful. The poppies were everywhere. The San Gabes right now. I mean, obviously are beautiful. So it's just like snowy peaks, wildflowers. The weather was perfect. There was like no one out there.
No one out there.
And
we saw no one.
Yeah.
No one.
Fields of poppies without like 100 people traipsing through them.
The Elsinore poppies.
Yeah,
you
they
can
were
see
insane.
so vividly from Main Divide and from Corona. Even.
Yeah.
It's
So,
wild.
yeah.
Like how. I mean, the hills look like they're on fire. I probably talked about this last time.
No, I don't think you did.
It's really beautiful up there right now.
I'm obsessed.
Like, it was really a nice day on the bike.
Magical.
You mentioned the San Gabes. I had a moment the other day where I looked up and I saw him and I caught my breath for real. And I was like, oh, that's where that phrase comes from.
The San Gabriel.
I
love it.
Yeah. It's just so everywhere, so amazing right now. Like, I don't know how long spring is going to last. Like, it feels like we are getting a real spring. And I don't know, like it could be 90 degrees in like a few days.
Oh, God, I hope not.
I think it's supposed to be 90 degrees, close to 90 degrees in a few days.
It kind of like, it looks like it's going to stay a little cooler longer. But it's just so nice to enjoy it when it's green and lovely.
The San Gabes on a clear day right now. You are absolutely right.
Yeah,
So
it looks like we're in a
beautiful.
real mountain town.
I mean, I can't remember how far down the snow has come and stayed.
I know. Usually you see it for a couple days and then it's gone or whatever.
Yeah, and
but
like Baldy will have a little on top and then nothing else.
Yeah.
And now it's like the whole range is covered.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So
And at dusk, it's purple.
so beautiful.
Were you still riding at dusk?
No.
No, we actually made decent time. So
We did.
so the total, so it was like almost 6,500
I know.
feet of climbing
Dang.
I undersold
on
that.
me bikes.
Me bikes.
On my bikes.
Me bikes.
I like that.
I think I got that from you.
That's an MTB Allen. So,
Okay.
copyright or
Yeah.
whatever, TM.
Yeah, TM.
MTB
We're
Allen.
borrowing that.
We've been really searching for the right term, and I think we've tossed a lot around. I think that's it.
Quite good, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good
I
one.
love it.
I have a theory why that ride didn't seem big to you, Val. I heard you're training for the Vision Quest.
No, the counting coup.
Oh,
No.
just
Just the counting. No big. NBD.
It's a lot easier.
I don't know.
I'm
That's
doing
exciting.
it. I know I've never done
So
it.
exciting.
I've never done it. And so the short version of the story is Brian and I were talking about 2 or 3 weeks ago about how it's coming up. And he was like, yeah, everyone used to do it in Orange County. It was like a rite of passage if you were a mountain biker. Like you just did it. Like Tani, you've done it, right? Multiple times.
I remember
Bach.
thinking to myself, this is just something I do now. I'll probably do this every week.
And so I've been here 10 years and I've never done it. And so he was like, oh, you should sign up. And we were eating dinner.
And you have really good fitness this year. Like you've been riding a lot. Like if you were to pick a year to do it, this is a good one.
especially like short short notice like that. Yeah. Because I was like, I think it was a month out when I signed up. And so he's like, you should sign up. I was like, I don't know. I don't think so. And I was like, I wonder how many miles it is in my head. I'm asking myself this. And it's 5 days before my birthday. And I'm going to be 48. And I was like, I knew the mileage was in the 40s. So I was like, how many miles is it? Brian, he was like, on his phone, 48. And I was like, God damn it.
Karma.
Okay. And then he is registering me before I even have a chance to change my mind. And I'm like, oh, I kind of have to do it now because that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the main motivation. So
that's fantastic.
So
when is it? When is the county?
April 15th.
10 days from today.
In 10 days.
Yeah. So that was a training ride
on
Sunday.
I think the training ride is as difficult as the ride, it sounds like, roughly. Maybe more difficult. I don't know.
It's not. The Counting Coup course has like 9,200 feet of climbing.
So what's the Counting Coup? You start at Black Star, right?
Yep.
All the way over to Motorway?
Yep. Down Motorway. Up Maple, which I heard that's the crux. Basically is like take a left at the bottom of Motorway and go up that treaded pavement.
That pavement's going to be horrendous.
Yeah.
Just
Brian
getting to the dirt.
Choose people and spits them out. Yeah. Because you're not really expecting it to feel so hard.
But remember, it's half the climb. The pavement is half the climb.
Isn't that wild?
That's why it
feet,
mentally can't figure it out. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's why.
There might even be some false downhills on that are just or I feel like the sense false flats where it feels like it's flat but it's a climb, and that's hard too.
Yes, it is. You feel like it should be easy, and then you're like, oh, this is kicking my ass. Yeah. So so you go up Maple, and then the Vision Quest people go up to the peak, back down, and Counting Coup folks go all the way back to Black Star on Main Divide. So the route's really different because of the Holy Fire.
That's going to be
yeah, because the old route went up and then over to Holy Gem, right?
I feel like that's at least equally hard. Am I?
No, that's harder than our training ride.
No. The current Counting Coup course. So the difference between going from Four Corners all the way across Main Divide and back down versus going up to the peak and back down.
So you go up to the Vision Quest people do the same route except they add the peaks.
Oh, they still have to do the traverse as well.
Yes, they do. Yeah, back to
if you could
Black
cut out
Star.
that traverse, that's going to be rough.
I've never done it, and I've never done Motorway to Black Star that direction.
I like that you're doing it the first time on the county.
I don't know if I do like that plan.
Ignorance is bliss.
I know. Brian's like, oh, you don't need to do that part. You've done it gobs of times the other direction, but I'm like, oh, some of those downhills are pretty long and steep, and they're going to be up.
Yeah.
So
we'll only speak positive to you on the podcast right now for the next 10 days.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm stoked you're doing that. I think it's going to be awesome.
Thanks. I'm excited.
I know.
Yeah.
Really cool.
I'm going to wear Lycra and I'm going to wear a Path jersey.
Are you? Oh, we haven't talked about what you're actually like.
Yeah, I am.
The gear side of things. Yeah.
I'm told it's easier or better.
I could see that. Yeah.
Right?
So it makes sense for a ride like that.
Yeah, it's like almost all fire road. It is. It's just Motorway again.
Which you know super well. So like that's yeah.
So, yeah.
So the Vision Quest will come back across as well.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, they'll go up to the peak and back, and then over.
Right.
To Black Star.
So is that must be what, 12,000 feet then total?
I think so.
Something like that.
Sounds right. Yeah,
Really?
And like 8 extra miles or whatever. So not a lot more miles, but that climb is pretty nasty up to Majeska Peak for sure.
Are you trying for a time, or are you just out there to enjoy the day?
I'm trying to survive, I think. Yeah.
Survive.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to do more than survive.
Yeah.
You will do more than survive.
You'll do great.
What Val left out is the day before we did our training ride, she did Black Star to Motorway. What did you do? Black Star to Motorway the day before.
Yeah, I did.
Which is like, a pretty burly ride too. So
yeah,
that's a pretty big training block.
It was, yeah.
I feel like you'll be ready.
It was a good way to stack. Yeah. We'll see.
I definitely would not want to stack those two.
It's brutal.
Feels like a 2-day push.
It wasn't too bad, actually. I felt worse on Saturday doing Black Star to Motorway for some reason, and then Sunday, I don't know. We were just having fun and talking and
pretty low
the
pressure.
whole way. So it was
having fun.
Yeah. Having type 2 fun.
Type 2 or whatever we decided. Type 4 or whatever.
And then you're going to become an XC racer like, with all this fitness.
So weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that going to give you the bug to do other endurance events?
Well, remember how we were on the podcast last time with Elise, the last time I was here, and she and I were in the same camp of we'd never been to Downieville. Well, I just registered for Downieville Classic all mountain race today. So I'm going. I'm going to just see that place for the first time for that event, which I'm so excited to go support the stewardship and Nicole and see the place.
So the all mountain is on the Saturday. You do a point-to-point cross-country race, like up to the crest. Have you actually done the classic?
No, but I'm familiar with. I've done the shuttle.
Yeah,
that would be the course.
Yeah, gotcha. So that point-to-point is, I think, like 4,500 feet of climbing over 20-something miles.
26, yeah.
And then the next day you do the Downieville downhill, kind of like really sort of iconic downhill, and 5,000 feet in 15 miles, I think, descending from the crest, hopefully from the crest. Like,
I know.
Obviously, the snow's a big deal this year at that elevation, but 2011 is the last time it snowed like this, and they had people digging out the course and Stowe ran. Like, it's definitely on no matter what. It's, we'll be up there digging again to get it ready.
Amazing.
But yeah, and you have to use the same bike for the cross country and the downhill. So it's
sounds like the Spur is a perfect bike for that.
Yeah.
And you can't change tires or wheels or anything.
No.
Not even pedals.
I think
nothing, right?
Definitely there's like a weigh in.
Yeah.
It's like pretty hardcore.
So you're doing just the all mountain.
Yeah, the XC and then
you're doing both.
Yeah.
Doing both. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is. So you can just do the XC or you can do the all mountain, which is the XC and the downhill.
And the XC is the climb and the descent, and the other one is just the descent? No.
XC is just the point to point.
Just the climb.
Yeah. Basically you're just, there might be some descending in there. Ooh. I'm not totally sure on that. But the all mountain is the XC and then the downhill the next day. So with the same bike.
And that downhill's physically demanding and long.
Yeah, it's physically demanding, and it's like the tire choice is so key because there's so many places, like flats are the really day
rock.
They're the day
rock,
stealer.
Right? Day stealer.
So I think that's the big, like you want a tire that's obviously going to be like fast and efficient for the XC, but you need something burlier for so that's the big question.
You want a 500 gram XC tire for the first day.
Yeah, totally.
1200 gram
but you've got to find that
tire
middle ground.
With Cush Core for the second.
That's right.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, you could put Cush Core in it for both days.
I feel like
it's not a terrible idea.
I feel
XC
like
Cush Core?
it might be the place for Cush Core for sure.
XC Cush Core with XR Force, maybe.
But you're probably pretty easy on tires. You're a pretty smooth rider.
Yeah, I guess.
Do you do a lot of sidewall cuts in sharp rock sections and stuff? Pinch flat type stuff?
I'm notorious for running too low
Yeah.
pressure and burping my tire.
Yeah.
Because I love it really low. Brian's like, he's been saying you should try Cush Core because you like to run your pressure so low.
There are a lot of spots on the downhill that I feel like push the limits of a tire and where maybe you're drifting and then you hit traction and it could cause that burp or you hit a square edge bump while you're sliding.
Yeah. Yeah,
We'll
you're gonna
have to talk about this. Yeah,
you're gonna have to be on the forums. What's the tire choice?
Really, you guys are friends with people who have really done well in that race.
Really, really diving deep on
Chris, who rides for the shop.
Oh, and Carl, who's been on the show.
Right.
Carl Decker. Yeah.
Those guys.
He'll be there.
He's a legend.
Josh Jaco will be there this year.
Also done really
racing
well.
in a Path jersey too. He still does. Yep.
He's done really well there before too.
He has. Yeah. So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you that.
Yeah, that's cool.
It almost makes me want to go up there and just spectate.
Please.
Come on up.
Come one, come all.
Pictures.
There's still well, I don't know by the time this airs, but there are still entries available, which is shocking, right?
Yeah, there's still we were able to add 100 spots this year to the Classic. So the XC sold out. The All Mountain has like a maybe 30 or 40 spots left. So yeah, there's a few. And then for any of the like gravel curious, Lost and Found still has spots as well, which is in early June. So I don't know how many listeners are gravel peeps.
I'm sure some are.
Yeah. That's a cool one too. And they're both, it's about the race, but it's almost more about the weekend and they're both festivals. They're both like live music and food and fun and just like good times. It's
sitting in the river.
Yes. Sitting in the Yuba River and Downieville. And I think, you like to your point, you can go up and not race and have a great weekend.
Is there still mostly no internet in town?
Actually, I just Greg Williams, he's the executive director of the stewardship, founded it. He was saying that Downieville now has service, I guess. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a bummer. But I'm well, probably not for the people who live there.
like when Silverado got service.
It's like for me, it's like, it's almost unheard of to go somewhere where there's actually no service. But apparently they've kind of improved it. So
yeah, that was kind of part of the experience. Is it's so untouched and out of the way, and your phone doesn't work all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's like
just like off the
truly disconnected. Like there was Wi-Fi in places, but you had to like go find the Wi-Fi.
And then you had to go to a few places first that were proud to tell you that they didn't have Wi-Fi. Really, really happy to tell you.
So yeah, I mean, I haven't been to Downieville in a few years. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how it's changed.
So participation in events, are people kind of not totally in the habit of participating in events yet again, or are they?
I think so. I mean, I think, I think with Downieville in particular, like has this reputation of selling out like within minutes. So you kind of think like if you miss the time, it's over. Like there's no chance you're getting in. And since we added spots, I think people just like didn't think that they'd be able to get in. I think that was a big part of why the All Mountain didn't sell out like immediately.
And there were extra spots that didn't sell too.
But it is interesting that the cross country, because it was always the other way around. It was always like the All Mountain would sell it instantly, and then the cross country would have spaces. And I don't know what that says, if anything, about like what people are into now. I just thought it was super interesting that the XC sold out first. Are people into XC?
High school racing.
Maybe up there.
That's a
especially
really good
NorCal.
point. Yeah,
and I think high school racing didn't really stop during the pandemic as much.
For sure. And I think, because it's the 25th anniversary and it's back, like I think people are excited about it for sure and like wanting to.
And it feels like high school racing is growing, right?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, everything, I think it's just exponentially leaps and bounds. It's huge.
So this is a great outlet for those guys and girls.
Yeah. So
they're in for a surprise if that's what it is, though, because a lot of the high school race courses are pretty tame, and Downieville's anything but tame.
Yeah, this will be a rude awakening.
Maybe a taste of like maybe more true, like pro XC course. Probably not even that gnarly though. The stuff
it's
they
also
do
like,
these days.
I don't know. I don't really follow racing super closely or racing trends, but I do know there aren't a lot of these like point to point races anymore.
It's so compelling.
It's like it's kind of like maybe one of the only ones left, and I don't know if that's like if people are still interested in this type of racing, or I want to think so and I hope so, but I don't know. Like,
it's difficult to be the only one, I think.
Yeah. It's like, are we fully moved on to just like enduro and whatever is, I don't know, popular right now in the racing world, or not racing at all. I don't know.
I think that a lot of people aren't racing as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With things being canceled, you kind of like move on a little bit. You're like,
you get out of the habit too.
You get out of the habit. Yep. That's a good way to put it.
And then if you have that racing background, it's like you only kind of want to go if you're going to do well, And if you're not racing as much, you're like, maybe I'll just go drink beer at the river instead.
Just float in an inner tube.
Yeah, which is fine.
So last time we had you on, we spent a little bit of time talking about women's events and kind of where they were 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? And there's really exciting and what have you. How has that changed in the past 6 years?
I don't think Rome was on the scene yet.
Yeah,
Barely. I think Rome just started. At least that's what I had. That's what I only know because I listened.
I think
that
last podcast was kind of at a peak. I think almost because Rome was coming on.
Yeah.
What I think Megan had just gone to Rome, maybe.
Yeah.
At that time.
Talking about drinking beer and riding your bike and floating on the river. I think there's some of that going on at some events.
Something like that. Yeah, I actually, I am still freelancing a little bit and writing for Free Hub, and I actually have a feature on Rome Fest coming out in May. So I went last fall and kind of got the whole experience, and it's an amazing event. Like, they've been such a leader in inclusivity and, like, just kind of being an event for everyone, and was really impressive to see in person. Like, it's run so well. They give a voice to people who really haven't had a voice historically in the industry. Their Shred Talks panel they do the Friday night of Rome Fest is like these amazing women speaking that, they've sort of raised their profile tremendously in the industry, and Rome has just done so much for women. And so it's been really cool to see that succeed. And they actually just started a nonprofit called Rome Collective. And it's kind of like spinning off some of these, the programming they do, like para writing and the BIPOC scholarship they offer. They're sort of like spinning that off into a nonprofit so they can, get grants and run it separately. And,
so cool.
And actually like partner with other events to kind of like bring this in. So, you don't have to feel like, hey, I know we need to be more inclusive, but what do I do? How do I do it right? How do I, there's a lot to learn. And they've kind of like the Rome ladies, Ash and Andy, who started it, they've already kind of like been through all that. And I just think that's really smart to kind of have this kind of package. You can go to other events and be like, hey, we'll take care of this programming for you.
Amazing.
And we have the connections, we have the staff, we have, we're going to do this in a really authentic way that's going to feel right.
So rad.
So what are some of the events that you're describing? I'm not familiar. I haven't been tracking this at all.
So Rome Fest is in 3 locations. Right now, Knoxville, Sedona, and Fruita, and I think they're hoping to expand. But then there's some other events. I guess they're partnering with, I think it's Grit Festival in Bentonville, and so they'll kind of like bring their programming to Grit. So like the BIPOC scholarship, the para program where they're like leading rides for para riders and getting them there, and they'll kind of like bring that to another festival that's they're not even affiliated with maybe, but they've got this nonprofit that now can sort of inject that into other events.
That's cool.
So really cool. Good idea.
Yes.
And it's just like thinking beyond your own event, I think can be so hard. Like if you're running an event, you're just so like in your own like sort of bubble, and to think to be able to like have the capacity to think more broadly is impressive.
Super impressive. Yeah.
Like part of their scholarship program that they're starting, it's sort of another thing they're starting next year, is they're giving people like a certain number of women a stipend to sort of come to their event, but then also a stipend to go do something in their own community and then go to another bike event, like that's not even affiliated, because it's like this mindset is we don't want to just like have them feel welcome here. We want them to feel welcome all over the industry. And
brilliant.
My mind was just like, like who would even think of that, you know? Yeah.
They're so awesome.
I love that thinking.
Yeah, totally. It's like really beyond their own, what they're doing. They're really thinking big.
It's like really a way to affect change that, you know, like you said, if it's just to their events, it keeps it. Yeah.
It can only ever get so big.
So big, exactly.
But if you're sending people somewhere else they want to go in the industry, some other event they want to participate, some race they want to do, you know, it's like that's what's going to change this, you know, this mountain biking archetype of, you know.
And it is hard to be the kind of what I was saying before. It's hard to be the only one. So if you can spread the idea, there's a synergy maybe, hopefully.
Yeah, strength in numbers.
Totally. Yeah.
And formation didn't exist back when we spoke 6 years ago. And so that's been another just like amazing event for women's free ride. It's insane to see it in person.
You went last year,
Yeah,
right?
I went last year. Yep. It was actually my swan song. It was my last assignment before Beta shut down.
Beta, right.
Kind of a cool last thing to get to do, though. Yeah.
So what is formation?
So most people know Rampage, and it's sort of, it's in the same location, like same venue in Virgin, and it's sort of that same big mountain free ride type of experience, invited athletes, but it's a little different in that formation is really focused on progression versus competition.
Right.
So, you know, there isn't a competition at the end, although they do kind of like have a day to do their final runs, and they call them in just like they do at Rampage, and it's like your heart's beating out of your chest. I mean, my heart as a spectator, I can't imagine what their hearts are doing. But yeah, it's really about like giving women the space and the place to like improve free ride, like riding these huge, just crazy, I don't even know, cliffs. Like it's insane.
It is.
So yeah, there's like a big mentorship component to it. It's really it's really cool to see, and it's really mind-boggling what they're riding.
What kind of participation is there?
Well, it's an invited, so like 12 invited athletes, and then there's also like they've got mentors there, and they have like dig crews, and another thing that's different about formation is it's not open to the public. You know, Rampage, you can buy tickets and you can go see the whole spectacle. Formation's more closed, and it's really about like setting up women to kind of have a career in free ride, to go, and it's changed. It's really spurred change, like to events that never had women before now have women's categories, you know, like Audi 9s and like Dark Fest and some of these other huge events. And, you know, I think what we're all waiting for is like, are women going to be at Rampage or what? What's the deal? So
I can't help but wonder, should anyone be at Rampage?
I mean, I think no, but if you're going to be,
if you're going to have a Rampage,
and if there are women who want to do it, you know,
100%.
It's like, yeah. This is formation really kind of like, to me, it really showed me that women do have a place at Rampage. Like seeing it all unfold and like what they're capable of, like the mental fortitude required to ride this stuff. It's like, if they want to go ride Rampage, I mean, they should be able to.
100%.
So,
I mean, Rampage itself has progressed from the early days to what it is now. I mean, the technicality and the size of things, and so there's no reason to think that having women participate with a program like formation would also be there.
And it has become less of a death wish competition, I think.
Yeah.
With the progression of technology and understanding of the features and everything.
Yeah, it's not like huck and pray anymore. Like there's real preparation. There's like these athletes are working, they're shaping their whole careers around being there and like really preparing, and it's changed a lot. So
since the Bender days.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, for sure. So, there's good stuff happening.
So we also talked in our last show. We talked about like women specific bikes. And so that was, I think,
should have listened to the last
like way back then.
What was my opinion?
No, this is great. This is
what did I say then?
December 2017.
I think mainly what you said is that people should at least make an extra small.
Right. Like the Process 134.
Yeah, I probably have this. I probably have the same opinion, really. Like I don't know. I kind of don't think there's anything. I think women specific serves a purpose beyond the product. Like you look at a brand like Juliana, and it's, it's really about the marketing and the message and women to kind of like community. Women to kind of feel like they're part of something. Like if there was just Santa Cruz, yeah, women are still going to ride that bike, but Juliana just has such a different vibe. So like, even though it's the same bike and people can get hung up on that, it's so like the community it creates is so different and welcoming. And yeah, so I mean, I think, a lot of times we don't really need women specific product, but I think it's about like, making something for everyone. And I also think for beginners, it can be really like, can make you feel maybe that, hey, this is a sport. They're making something for me, and
breaks down some barriers.
Yeah. As someone who sells bikes, I can tell you with utter certainty that most people are kidding themselves about the level of emotional connection that's involved in their bike purchase. Mm-hmm. So like, if you're making something that more people have an emotional connection to.
Yeah, totally. Because so many bikes are great these days.
Yeah,
they all are.
Like you
really.
almost can't go wrong.
So it's like what appeals to you, what fits you.
Yeah.
What
I really like helping the customer who admits to me up front that they are hung up on some aesthetic thing and doesn't want to like try to hide that from me.
And that's okay.
But what I will say about women's is I actually still think there is a ways to go on the apparel side.
Oh, yeah.
There's brands like Wild Rye, and there's, like, it's changed a lot, but then we've also moved backwards. Like Machines for Freedom closing down, I think was terrible. And they were such a leader in, again, like body inclusivity and making these size runs that, like were actually realistic for a lot of women. And like to see that brand get shut down is just like makes you just think like we are moving backwards, and I think there's still a lot of issues with just like size inclusivity, and there are brands that are doing better at that than others, but I think we've got a long ways to go on that side of things for sure.
Yeah.
So
Tani kind of mentioned on like the getting into the sport. I don't think I've ever heard either of you talk about how you got into the sport.
Oh, interesting. I was a really late bloomer.
Same.
I didn't grow up riding bikes or anything like that. I never really rode until I lived in Colorado in my early mid 20s, and I lived up in the mountains, and that's like you skied or snowboarded in the winter, and then you rode bikes in the summer. That was just like what everyone did. So I was just like a little sheeple, and I just went and got a bike. And it was like a used Navara.
Awesome.
Hardtail. It was like just bought it at a secondhand store and just started riding around like Summit County, and just kind of took to it, like really loved it. And
what era of bike technology was this? Like V brakes, center pole brakes?
Yeah, so brakes? I'm remembering. So my first real bike after that was actually the Santa Cruz Juliana, which was the first. When Santa Cruz started making a Juliana, which I believe was the Blur platform. No, Superlight. It was the Superlight. Yeah. So, that would have been V brakes, no dropper, but some we were moving in the right direction.
Right.
It wasn't like 90s.
Yeah. That was about the era we started the shop.
Okay.
V brake era.
Yeah. So, so kind of just started riding, and then I was like, my background was journalism. I went to journalism school and I was working in a newspaper in Colorado. And when I got the job at Brain, that's when I like really started riding, like got a road bike, and I'd never been on a road bike before. And
Brain lunch rides.
And then when I went to bike, I just pretty much exclusively mountain bike from there. I mean, road ride if you have to, but
in San Clemente, right?
Yeah.
Oh, is that where they were when you started at bike?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. How about you? Do I even know your story?
I don't know.
I think I do.
Do I know your story?
What is your story? I dabbled in it in the 90s, but on a Nishiki back roads that was fluorescent yellow, and it had this, like, it was fully rigid, these beefy fork legs. I didn't know anything. I was still in high school, actually. And I didn't really ride trails. It was more like dirt roads because of where I was.
Elevated chain stays like the Nishiki Alien?
It did not.
Okay.
I don't think.
Just trying to get the right picture in my head.
Right.
Brian keeps trying to find me an old one on
God.
eBay.
Amazing.
I can have the same bike again.
Amazing.
But yeah, it was all, this would have been
where was
like
this again?
92. What's that?
Where was that again?
In Idaho.
Nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
in northern
great.
Idaho, where I grew up, middle of nowhere. So we had tons of, we didn't call them fire roads there. They were logging roads.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Same with
Same
Oregon.
in Oregon. Yeah.
So I didn't really mountain bike, but it was a mountain bike. And then really started in Hood River. In 2001, I bought a Santa Cruz Heckler.
No way.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And
You like
it
went
had
full in.
I did. I bought it from Fat Tire Farm in Portland.
Amazing. They're still there, aren't
Yeah,
they?
I think they're pretty legendary, right?
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Very kind of similar vibes to the Path, really, in the Northwest. Yeah. And rode like for a few years there and a couple years in Post Canyon, but it was always like flitting off to do other things. I never really like got into it until 2007, and I bought an Ellsworth California Id.
I did not know that.
Wow.
Yeah, I loved that bike.
That was a really good bike first
That was
time.
a-
Cool bike.
We sold a lot of those.
That's what Brian says.
I wonder if
yeah.
Joel still has his.
I don't know. That's such. I remember riding that bike at Interbike the first year it came out and just being like kind of blown away by it. I think it had a 70-degree head angle though, with a lot of travel. Wow. What color you had? What color was
It was
yours?
like a reddish, like
Okay.
a
Oh, yeah.
reddish
Red
pink.
anodized.
Yeah, anodized.
and it
yeah.
would turn pink after a while
It totally faded.
in the sun. Yeah.
Yes. So I sold my Heckler and got that, and then I got pretty far into it at that point. But I've always kind of like until the last 10 years. Well, even in the last 10 years, I'll go do other things. Like got way into climbing and then it's more seasonal up there, so I wouldn't do it as much in the winter. But really when I moved here, and especially the last few years, although when we first started hanging out, like I knew Nicole because I replaced her at Brain when she went to bike. I was hired. And so we knew each other, but we didn't really hang out much. And then there was a legendary media trip where Nicole and I and Gloria Liu, who has now become pretty well-known writer, not just in the bike world, but elsewhere, and Axie Navis from Powder or Ski or
Well, she was outside at the time. Yeah, and she's moved on out of media, but yeah.
Yeah, and we were on this amazing trip to Colorado to go visit Yeti when they launched the Yeti Betty. And we did, it was kind of crazy. We flew there, and the next day we did this Vita Skills Clinic on the race course. Really cool, awesome, really fun day. But then the next day we did a
Told us, they were like, by the way, you're racing the Betty Bash.
cross country race.
Cross country. We're like, okay, we don't race.
And we stayed out until 2 a.m. the night before,
sounds like
drinking
racers.
tequila.
Tequila, Val has a great photo of me just like a full bottle of tequila. I don't know what was going on, but
it was a
I blame it on
night.
Chris Conroy and Hoog.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, and then we all the next day podiumed.
We all did well.
It was crazy.
We all were, and it was my first race age 40. I remember. I wasn't even 40 yet, I don't think. Well, I must have been, but it was, and I thought it was going to be really bad, and it actually wasn't.
I think it was the not caring.
No pressure.
Yeah,
I was
no
just
pressure.
just survive it.
Yeah.
But that's when you and I think, really bonded.
Yeah.
'Cause we did it, and we did a ride on Friday with Yeti too.
Yeah.
The Apex.
On that Apex.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we really, I think, started hanging out more and riding more together. So that was 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
The road trip bond is a deep bond.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, it was. It was a good one, for sure. So now we have our Lady Shred crew that is pretty solid. Yeah, four of us.
Pretty good crew.
Great crew.
Yeah, but I feel like even just within the last year or so, I just think life was really, we both traveled a lot for work for a long time, and I just think within the last year or 2 years, we really ride way more now than we ever did before.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, traveling a lot was awesome. Fun for all the media, all the stuff we did at Brain and you did at Bike and Beta. It's when you're home more, it's easier to get into more of a routine and keep it going, keep your fitness up, you're eating better, not drinking and partying as much. So yeah.
That's the idea anyway.
I keep laughing at Val's version of the story and Nicole's version of the story.
But yeah, that's the origin story,
That's the story,
I guess. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
Fun. Yeah, I learned in Hood River, which at the time, Post Canyon was, trying to be mini North Shore. A lot of places were with the really narrow elevated skinnies that one person could ride, maybe the person who built it, and then just steep moto trails. And it was literally okay, we shuttled to the top and just go down it. And that's how I learned. And it was, challenging. So, but I think it was also really good for me as a beginner because I just had to sort of figure it out and make it down and not be afraid to walk. And but and then and I rode a lot there. Hood River is awesome for riding.
I just went there the first time last year to
Oh,
ride.
I can't believe that.
Yeah,
it was the first time.
It's really fun.
I've never
It
been
is
there.
fun.
I've always wanted to.
It's a good trip.
You're in the
to do.
woods. It's real.
Yeah.
I don't know. The trails are amazing.
It looks cool in the pictures.
Yeah.
Some big boulders and stuff, I think, if I remember. Not so much?
Not so much.
Not where I rode.
Post Canyon, no.
Canyon.
Yeah. That's a little more, I'd say, buffed out. Not technical, but some steep, fun, bermy, flowy stuff. It's changed a lot over the years.
Okay.
It's a lot less raw than it was when I
first
started.
That was probably just all people just building in the woods.
It was.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Necessarily legal.
No. No. Unsanctioned. Yeah. But
how has COVID changed? That changed many things, but how has COVID changed women's riding or inclusivity or in the bike industry? In any ways, maybe not.
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever thought about it, to
I
be
have
honest.
a bit of an opinion from the shop perspective.
Yeah.
There was a huge wave of COVID riders, and I don't think there was equal representation or even close to it. I think in terms of proportions, we lost ground.
Interesting.
I think more of but I think we still did get some new riders that are women, and I think we have continued to grow that side of the sport, but not as fast as the other side of the sport's grown lately, but maybe in a more sustainable way, hopefully, because we're losing a lot of those new COVID riders. So they're not really here to stay anyway. Maybe some of them are.
Maybe women were the ones who were more likely to, kids were out of school.
Yeah.
And somebody had to kind of be the homeschool teacher. And, I think in a lot of things you read from that time period, or, you know, the women were kind of the ones to leave the workforce to kind of be at home taking care of like kids who were out of school during that time frame. And, you know, maybe that also translated to like not really having the...
And men left the workforce under the guise of working from home.
Totally. And started riding every day. So, you know, I don't know if it's connected, but...
I think that sounds right. And totally. And also, I don't know, I don't want to get into stereotypes about men, but like an impulsiveness to the the COVID rider. Like,
yeah. Yeah, like I've got to have this now. I've got to do this new thing now.
Yeah.
Like I've already baked the bread. I've got to like
made my sourdough.
Yeah.
Did the starter.
Yeah.
Go right now. But you can keep doing both, like James.
Yeah. That's true.
Angry Asian James.
I also think there were some setbacks with events and connection and community.
Yeah, clinics. And
group rides.
And I also think that there was a lot of streamlining of product lines, which isn't good for these extra small sizes or these women's products.
It's kind of the first thing to go. I feel like, you know, like, as when COVID was happening in the industry and everything was just like, there's just like money flying everywhere. This is how I picture it in my head. But, you know, now we're in this situation where it's the complete opposite, you know, like it's contracting, and I feel like a lot of those things are kind of the first to go.
And in the mad rush to sell as many as they could, I think a lot of brands focused on larges and mediums.
Yeah.
And unisex bikes.
Yeah, just like, you know, what the masses, like that's what you were going to sell. So yeah, it's interesting.
And part of it, you know, if you have to cut your workforce because people are homesick and everything, makes sense. You don't want to have as many SKUs to sell and everything, but it has consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I have to say, I think our Women's Wednesday ride came back stronger from COVID.
Yeah.
Last year was just an all-time season for it. We had such good turnout, and this year we've been rained out twice now, but
crazy to say here.
Yeah, totally. Especially in March, April. We brought on some brand partners, which we talked about, I think, with the Elise, and because Liv is one of those, which is going to be next week. We had SRAM sponsoring the last one, which was the first one, it turned out, because we had to cancel the first one. We had to cancel the ride, but we came to the shop and did it anyway. Lee Donovan taught a clinic on SRAM transmission. It was awesome. We had like 20 people here. So not even riding, and they were so happy to be here and be back and, you know, be out of the house and see each other and talk about riding and get stoked for the next one. And so I do think that the women's ride somehow came back a little bit stronger from that break.
I think a lot of that is to your credit, Val, for making a space for it and making it engaging and fun and consistent. So people.
Yeah, definitely. And you have to have, like, that's the thing. You've got to have those champions. You have to have people who really care about it. And, when that's gone, these things tend to go away too, you know? So
yeah, that's true.
You don't have women within a company that are really, like pushing for product development or, you know, whatever. It's like that, it just doesn't happen. So.
It seems like that debate does rage on with major brands switching sides on the debate since we last spoke, even, I think. Because I think when we last spoke, Specialized was still doing real women-specific stuff, and really pretty proud of it.
Yeah.
And now they're not.
Mm-hmm. Track and,
It just, the whole thing kind of, I like, don't want to sound like a jaded old bicycle lady, but like, it really just makes you think, like, how much of it is real? You know, like, so much of it feels, as time goes on, feels performative. You know?
Insincere, performative.
Yeah, it just feels like a little box checky, you know, like we need to do this, or this is what kind of feels like, you know, we should be doing right now. But like, if you look at what's truly sustained, it's like, you know, it's business. So if the numbers aren't there, the numbers aren't there. But it is hard to see some of that come and go.
Yeah. And it's also tough to be it's tough to be first. It's tough to be one of, it's tough to do it before the market's really mature and ready.
Yeah.
And so there's all this chicken or egg critical mass stuff going on.
Yeah.
I think, and I bet within these companies I picture there's players within the companies who are sincere about it and ones who aren't sincere, and like, probably the ones who aren't sincere have more power. But
who has the voice, who has the power, like who's really making those decisions. And
it does seem like Liv is pretty sincere about their efforts.
I mean, I think they've proven their commitment, for sure.
Yeah, I read an article about that the other day. Bonnie 2, gotta look at my notes. She's the Giant Group chairperson, has been championing women's specific since 2006.
Yeah, it was like her whole like baby.
Yeah, so to your point, having the right person, the right woman in the right spot in a position of influence that no one can say like, nah, we're just gonna override that. You don't override the chairman.
Yeah.
And like in our last podcast with Elise, really saying this is a big part of Giant Live.
Yeah, for sure.
I hope that investment pays off for them. I'm not sure it always has, but I hope it does.
Maybe globally. Like I would be curious. North America, probably. I wonder.
I think maybe
globally,
eventually.
Like you've got to think, just that business and how committed they are in like a market like China. Like they probably sell a ton of Live bikes. So yeah, it's interesting for sure. But yeah, they deserve a lot of credit. Like you can, I think some people might not think the bikes are really for them but they've really committed to a segment of the market and stayed committed to it. And that's more than you can say for a lot of brands.
And a lot of women will come into the Path and look at the Liv and buy the Giant. And look at the Juliana and buy the Santa Cruz. Sometimes because they say for resale value. Sometimes it's someone who doesn't want a real feminine looking bike.
Yeah, they don't like the color, or they don't like the
A lot of times it's
colors are
a lot of times it's I just want a black bike.
Yeah, something neutral or
yeah, it's interesting.
It is fun. I think it's smart to play the long game and be ready. I think if you look at the big picture, it's pretty clear that women are growing their mountain biking is growing the women's side in the big picture. That's happening. I think.
For sure.
So I think the long game is to invest in that, but I do think that it sometimes you're kind of singing alone or kind of pushing upstream or whatever.
Yeah.
And even like our women's apparel section, I think is a good example, right? Because like dollars per square foot, it's not necessarily like a sound business choice per se. But like there's no doubt in my mind that it's a sound business choice, just in terms of being the shop that we want to be and what that means in the bigger picture. And I don't know. It's complicated.
Well, and I mean, you just don't see that commitment from a lot of shops, that kind of space like you've devoted to women's apparel.
And it's still not as good, honestly. And you got to look at both sides. It's still not as good as it should be. So it's just like,
it's tough.
But I think it's exciting. I think it's cool that more people of all types are participating in mountain biking, and that to the degree that the industry is facilitating that, great. To the degree that it's just happening, great.
Yeah.
I think it is happening, which is cool. Maybe not as fast as I'd like, but
but that's the last couple years. It just, so many more people have a voice than ever have in this industry, like just of different backgrounds from just non-traditional communities. Like there's just, even though we've taken some steps back, I think there's so much more diversity than we've seen ever, and so hopefully we that continues.
Yeah, I think if it continued, if you look at kind of the graph of like 20 years ago when basically no women came in the path, and it's just like...
Yeah, anecdotally, even you have this...
Maybe that snowballs a little bit at some point. It feels like we're at a point where it could start to snowball to me, because it takes a certain amount of people doing it to create a community and get people doing it.
Yep. I love when we go down to San Clemente, which it's been a while because it feels like it's been too muddy for so long. And we'll see like these groups of women, and we're like, who are they? Yeah. We must know them. Like, how don't we know them? And we're like, I guess they're far enough south, and like, I don't know, but it's so awesome to see that. Or like going to Sky Park and seeing, women riding there, and like, who seem to be like core mountain bikers. And I'm like, yes, this is
normalized.
What,
it's not like, you're not the only one out there anymore.
Right, which we were for, personally anyway. I pretty much only rode with guys in the beginning for years.
Yeah, for sure.
I was the token girl.
They don't know how to après.
No.
So
come on,
they don't know how to. They don't have the after ride program like we do.
I only learned this term recently from Val.
It's actually a ski term, but
we stole it. Yeah, we do that well. Mm-hmm. Good snacks.
Good at how do you pronounce it? Après.
Après.
Like someone who speaks French, chime in the comments.
It's our job to say it wrong.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I think we all just looked around like that might be a podcast.
Are we done? Anything else?
Well, thank you so much. Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks, Val.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. See you in 6 years.
3, maybe?
Try to remember us this time.
Thanks to all the listeners and the staff at the Path, and let's all remember to love the bike we ride.